what we call it is bio-individualistic behavior.
Okay.
Which means that every person has a different approach towards the other person. You know, we're not okay with the idea of different types of relationships. We are not even okay with the trial and error. If you are someone who's investing and the other is constantly withdrawing and not investing, at one point you're going to be bankrupt. If you care about financial investment and returns being balanced, then don't you think we should be careful about the emotional investment and emotional returns also to be balanced? The moment you both invest, imagine you both are investing in that relationship, giving in your emotions, you know, helping each other grow, understanding and adding value to each other's life, then I think it's just going to compound.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the LalithDhanush show. Today I have with me a very special guest and I have Ekta Dixit with me, and I met her when I came to the Tag Mango Creator Bat for my first cohort, and I think we were on the same bowling team, and that's when we interacted for the very first time. And since then, I've been following her content and I'm super excited for this episode. Ekta, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on this show.
Yay, thank you. Now, Ekta, on your Instagram bio, it says you're a psychology student, you're a psychologist, and you're a relationship coach. How did it all start?
Well, to be very honest, when I talk about psychology as my subject, because I realized as a teen, I just started, like if I have to give you in a gist, I realized that, you know, I used to give out when people used to come up and speak about their issues or maybe just a general concern. I used to give out suggestions to them like a way out, navigate their emotions. I would understand all of that and I would help them navigate through those issues, and I realized, oh, that's working out for them. And I realized, oh, so I like understanding people. Also, the reason why I got into psychology is because I wanted to know why people do what they do. It was very clear cut for me because I was seeing a lot of toxic relationships around. I was seeing a lot of you know, fragmented families. I was seeing a lot of dysfunctional relations going on around, whether not just to do with families, but also to do at workspace as well. So I think these things sort of built up the curiosity in me. I wanted to know that why people are behaving in a certain way. And I think that's the reason why I actually got into psychology as a part of it. And also I had one of my aunt who did psychology, and she left it in between because she was like, it's a tough call. Because, you know, you have to understand about humans, you have to understand about the belief systems, how they function and all of it. And once you learn that, you can unlearn it. That's the point. Like, you can't unlearn those facts at all. So even in a lot of settings, you know, people come up and tell me, are you psychoanalyzing me? Like, by any chance? And I'm like, this is not happening, I'm not. So a lot of times, even when you don't want to, it's an innate quality that comes out to you. So I realized it was more innate to me. Also, it was a curiosity to know more about people, about how they function and why they do what they do.
Man, I think I have a lot of things running in my mind once you said that, because I'll tell you one thing that I've come across in terms of psychology students. A lot of common factors. Number one, because I teach, a lot of these 12th grade kids come up to me and say, I love knowing more about people and I want to study psychology. And ironically, that demographic is very, very gender specific to women.
Yeah.
None of these boys ever come up to me and say, I want to learn about how people think. Boys are not interested. It's just the women. Yeah. Is there something about psychology and women that go hand in hand?
No, it's like women are designed that way, to be very precise. It's just how the psychology has been brought up. Also, it's the cultural diversity between men and women, the way that they've been brought up and nurtured, where we know during the evolutionary period, men are supposed to be the providers, more to do with going out hunting and, you know, looking after the, you know, the bread and butter of the family. Whereas woman is always tagged as a nurturer. Someone who looks after people, who's more people oriented than money oriented.
Makes sense.
And which is why we women are more inclined towards emotions, towards more feelings, towards, you know, togetherness, too much into like to and fro, coming and going from humans.
I also think that gives women a superior advantage emotionally over men, especially when it comes to relationships and moving on.
Possibly. But I don't want to be gender biased, to be very honest, because we do see a lot of men who are emotionally driven. So I don't think in today's time and age we can sort of gender bias saying that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. It's not like that. Okay, men are emotional beings.
They don't know
as
how to
well.
express it.
But I'm glad about how we are improving in terms of humans, in terms of expressing our emotions. Where I know the kids, especially male kids, they were supposed to be, they were told and they were conditioned, why are you crying? Boys are not supposed to cry, guys are not supposed to cry. So I'm glad that how we are coming out and speaking about these issues, which are, I think, which are more social in nature, and we're learning about these. I think this also includes in civic sense. When we talk about, okay, let men be emotional, let men come out and speak about their own emotions and struggles. Because what happens, they're hardwired to sort of not come out and speak the struggles because they need to come out as tough.
Makes sense.
So females, of course, they do understand emotions a lot more, but comparatively, I don't think with how we're growing, it's not going to be gender biased anymore.
Yeah. Well, I have half a Jordan Peterson sitting inside me trying to rip these questions apart.
But apparently Jordan Peterson is someone I really love. I love the kind of...
He's fucking brilliant, isn't he? Like a class act.
I love what he does. I love the kind of videos he makes. And it's so apt, on point. Like, he can not only rip you apart with whatever's been conditioned, but you understand that there's a self-evaluation that comes on picture.
Correct.
Like right straight, right there on your face.
Yeah, and he speaks from the point of awareness where he says, listen, I am biased, right? Yes. This is how I fucking operate, now deal with it, right? This is how I'm giving you my stance.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a very powerful place to be in, and the influence that he carries on the internet is insane.
Yes, absolutely. I think influence on internet, especially to do with someone who's doing a lot more personal growth stuff. I don't think someone who's too much into makeup, fashion, they do follow them. No. So he has a very specific genre and a niche that follows him. And I think that's how it works.
Okay, I'm going to throw a Jordan Peterson statement and I want your take on it. He says, women, children and dogs are loved unconditionally. However, men are loved only on the condition that they provide. What's your take on this?
Just like I said, it's about the conditioning that's been done, to be very, very honest. Also, how women are also becoming providers now. So, in a lot of households where women are providers, even they are loved only when they're providing. Let's just take it that way. Providers in terms of also, if I have to get too deep into it, if a woman is providing a kid, only then she's loved. That's also another kind of a conditioning that's been done.
Okay.
Okay. Specifically to do with Indian households. All right. So it's, I cannot really go towards these gender biased roles at all now, considering the kind of setting that I work with right now and the kind of work that I do. Also with the clients and the patients that I see, I think in that case, I don't think we are really coming to any gender specific topics at all, because I think if something a topic applies to men, it applies to females as well. So with women being loved more, the dogs being loved more, the babies being loved more, it's the same thing. Men are also loved more, provided there are certain conditioning that's been done towards them. Okay, that's the whole point.
Maybe apart from conditioning, what do you think about instinctive, ability of the same? Because now on an instinctive level, there are certain traits or characteristics a woman was supposed to do. I don't want to call that conditioning, because that's how it's been for a long time before we became a capitalistic society. On the other hand, men were supposed to do only a certain few things. Now, what do you talk about instinct? Now, maybe a woman, let's take you itself, for example. Who would you find more attractive? A guy who's super good looking, great character, but is at home and a home provider, or a guy who's super rich, who has the cars, who has the flamboyance, who has all of it? What would it be?
I think what we call it is bio-individualistic behavior, which means that every person has a different approach towards the other person. For me, I've been conditioned in a way where I look at someone who's hustling, I look at someone who doesn't have 10 cars but is on the process of making it work. I think that's someone, if I see someone who's on this chase of growing every single day, I think I'm going to be more inclined towards that person rather than someone who has cars, who has 10, like a huge, like 200, 300, 400 acres, space, and lives a lavish life, a luxurious life. But also, what if that person does not have those qualities
Correct.
that an individual is supposed to have in terms of looking and expanding that vision and horizons? Then I'm not going to be inclined towards that person at all.
Makes sense,
So
man.
it's like, again, bio-individuality. That's my choice, how I've been brought up. I've been brought up that way, that I would look at someone who's hustling and someone, I wouldn't say hustling to be very precise, but someone who is in the process of growing every day and believes in growth. Yes, is hungry to give out value and to also gain a lot of momentum and value in life. I think then I'm going to be more towards that person.
Very interesting, man. Very interesting. Just to shift a couple of gears, Ekta, biggest time consumers in human life is with relationships.
Absolutely.
Right? And today, your success, your network, your growth, your potential, everything is determined only because of the relationships you possess.
Absolutely.
And one thing that man, this is going to be something I'm going to say off camera, but like I'm going to turn 26 very soon. Yeah. So my mom's like, hey, when you gonna get married and all that bullshit? I'm like, Mom, just 26. She's like, 26? You were 4, you know. But she also tells me one thing, like she says, after marriage, I've seen so many friends, their children get married.
Yeah.
One thing I've realized is that if you want to be successful, it's not just you anymore. That partner you get on, not as your business partner, but also as your life partner,
Yes.
actually determines how far you will go.
Yeah.
Right? And it kind of does make sense, because post that 1.5 years of romantic honeymoon phase,
Absolutely,
reality will strike, and
will
who the
kick
fuck
in.
you are does matter the most. Now, I'll ask you one thing about this relationship. What do you think are the biggest problems that Indians face in this relationship context, according to you?
Well, if I have to talk about specifically to do with Indians, but also it does apply globally to some extent. But I think the most important aspect of relationship that's missing out here is open communication. In India.
Break it down. Tell me what
So
is
if
open
I talk
communication.
about open communication, to be very precise, here in India, people don't know how to sit together and decide on relationship goals. Okay, so now I'll give you an example. So what happens, suppose if you're staying in New York or you're staying in London and you come into a relationship, but you're not very sure about how do you want to go about it, but you come together, so you're just scrolling through Tinder and you're like, okay, swipe right. Let me just go. I don't know, it's swipe right or swipe left. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm very bad with this, but whatever it is, whatever swipe that you do, it says yes. It means somewhere you meet that person and it's a fling. You're very clear about it's a casual relationship.
Nothing of depth.
Yes, we here do not have this culture of casual relationship. If the relationship has to be that, it has to be a die-hard, a deep core relationship. Either you're getting married or you're not getting married. Okay, so there's nothing like a casual relationship. So what happens? I'm talking about a lot of youth today, since they are into trial and error method. They want to get into relationship to see whether this is going to work out or no. So you sit down and decide what are you really looking for? What are your goals in terms of relationships? We are not very okay with the casual ones because a lot of youth don't want to commit to a relationship and they're looking for something very much casual, and people do not appreciate that. So that's one of the things, when your goals are not aligned. That's when one person comes and says that मैंने तो दिल दिया, but then what happened? You're not committed to me. तुमने तो नहीं दिया.
हाथ दिया.
So, yeah, whatever that is, but
I'm just mastering my Hindi, guys.
So the point is that if you don't have your goals aligned with each other, you're going to have clashes. You'll have conflicts because one person will feel that he or she is too much investing and the other is not. But the other does not have the goal to go ahead for a longer term, does not want to commit. So what happens? There's a lack of open communication here in India. We do not we're not okay with the idea of different types of relationships. Talking about the other problem that we do see in terms of relationship is there's a lot of gap in terms of gender biased role. Okay, now at this point we don't see, every gender is being given certain roles, but at this point of time when we are growing, no one has a specific gender roles, right? Even the guy is helping out in the kitchen, even the girl is going out and hustling out together, right? So if your roles are not clearly aligned and not being communicated well, that creates issue. Apart from that, there is another biggest issue that we see is more to do with the differences in sexual drive. We do see that. Now, of course, we've been conditioned a lot more in terms of relationships that sex is more stimulating. It's more, it's a sin. It's a sinful act. Okay, so since it's a sinful act, people do not explore themselves. They don't explore relationships. So what happens? There's a change. There's a difference in libido, of course. It's very natural that comes out. And when the drives are different and not communicated well, that women are told when you talk about sex per se or demand it, you're not accepted well. Okay, you don't come out clean. That's the point.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so women are not supposed to communicate their desires, their drives. So these are some of the barriers that we see in relationships.
And like you said, there's not a lot spoken about sexuality, and most importantly, when it comes to a woman, she's kind of completely driven away from that topic. Think about those people who are going through emotional traumas when they encounter situations with their own husbands or whoever
Yes,
it is.
It's very intimidating.
My God.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I can't even put myself in a place of empathy, man. It's just that scarring. Moving on, toxic relationships form because of these problems that you just stated.
Yes.
What is the best and the quickest way to get out of a toxic relationship? Like what are the indicators and how do you get out?
Well, when you talk about toxic relationship, the first most important thing is to be aware of it, that you are in one. Unfortunately, I feel really sad for a lot of people out there that they don't know that they are in a toxic relationship. For example, if I've been brought up in a family setting where I've been seeing my parents fight with each other, my father hits my mother, for example, and then I get into a relationship where my guy abuses me verbally. I take this as normal. Then he starts hitting me. I see this is normal because I've seen my parents doing it. I've been conditioned that way, that despite of having an abusive relationship, my parents have been together for 40, 50, 60 plus years. They've been together. They've had all these kids. I think this is normal. So unfortunately, we do not recognize toxic relationships. So recognition is first and foremost. Where you recognize that of course, if something is not making you feel better in shorter term, if any relationship, the relationship that you're in, if it doesn't help you grow and become a person of value, that's toxic. If it affects you and it doesn't help you live a peaceful and meaningful life, that's toxic.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
This is very important.
How do you get out?
So the moment you get to know, of course, awareness, that you be aware that this is toxic. Second, of course, you start communicating with the partner that this is toxic and start creating boundaries. That, okay, if we are communicating about this X point, okay, and if you start getting hyper about it, it's time for us to take a break. So you start creating boundaries like that. And through boundaries, you can get out of toxic relationship. But again, it's two to tango. You have to together make it work. If the other person is not okay with these boundaries, it's time to take a call.
Makes sense. And that person should come from a place of self-awareness. Yes. And if that person actually does not, then it's a problem. And I think most of our country belong to that bracket.
But I'll tell you, if both the partners do value that relationship a lot more, they want to be together, then they'll make sure that they are investing equally.
Makes sense.
So you have to make sure that relationship has to be as such where you're investing. Suppose if you are someone who's investing and the other is constantly withdrawing and not investing, at one point you're going to be bankrupt.
Wow, that's a nice statement.
Take it. If you care about financial investment and returns being balanced, then don't you think we should be careful about the emotional investment and emotional returns also to be balanced?
Damn. Yeah, dude, you should. You better be. And remember, as you invest more into it, it starts compounding.
Exactly my point. I was coming to that.
Yeah.
So the moment you both invest, imagine you both are investing in that relationship, giving in your emotions, helping each other grow, understanding and adding value to each other's life, then I think it's just going to compound.
Very, very interesting, man. Ekta, we're coming to the fag end of this podcast. I think I, for one, I'm having a lot of epiphanies and lot of there are thoughts in my head which I might not have seen in that perspective, but I think this podcast is bringing a lot of light to that. And moving on, let's just quickly get to a couple of things before I let you go. You also recently won the Cosmo Award for the best mental health influencer.
Yes.
How is that feeling for being recognized? And like I said about Jordan Peterson, now he's a person of influence. He's right there on the internet.
Yes.
You are gaining your own traction, your own scope on Instagram. How did this whole process happen, and how did you feel during the award?
Well, if I have to sum it up in short words, and to be very precise, then I would say I was extremely thrilled, first of all. Not to just receive the award, to be called as India's mental health influencer of 2022, but
Wow.
also because a big platform like Cosmopolitan has introduced the biggest and important niche of our life, which is mental health.
Nice.
They've introduced mental health as a part of award functions, because we do hear a lot of these platforms. They talk about motivational speakers, they talk about inspirational pages, they talk about all of these. Someone who brings change out there. But you can bring change in terms of sexual health. There are a lot of them who are doing it. You can bring change in terms of body positivity. So there are a lot of them who are bringing change. But what about mental health? So I was extremely happy and thrilled, to first receive an email from them saying that, they've nominated me as one of them. And but more than that, I was more happy and grateful about how we as a country are growing and recognizing mental health as the most important aspect of our life. Because if you're mentally sane here, you're sane all over. So I think that was a great stepping stone for me.
Makes sense. And I think it is the need of the hour today,
Absolutely.
especially you having beaming screens right in front of your face all the time, and this inner little voice is going back, and comparing you with everything that you're seeing, and there's so much noise in your head. I feel you could be that cushioning pillow, right? Like, rather than watching cringe content, watching your content would also give some actionable steps in the very near future. And I think that's what I like about your content the most, right? And today you have close to 1 lakh and above on Instagram.
170K.
Fuck, that's quite a lot, and it
For
takes
an
good work.
infotainment, yes.
What has been your biggest failure or struggle in life, and how did you overcome it?
There were a couple of incidences when I started with content creation. So I've been in the industry for over a decade.
Wow.
But
Damn.
in the content creation, it's been 2 years since the
Nice.
pandemic. So we've seen a lot of content creators born during the pandemic. But I think it sort of made me feel I wanted to reach out to masses. And social media was one of a great way. So when I started with content creation, I had a different idea altogether, where I wanted to get through this and, I'll reach out to this level and it's going to be easy. But I realized it's not an easy ride. It's like a consistency game. It's a lot of hard work that you need to put in, not just like smart work, but it's there. So
Makes sense.
I realized that there was some points during these 2 years where I saw a lot of stagnant phase of mine in terms of social media, and I realized I don't know whether I'm ever going to grow through this. Because I'm sorry to say, but our social media does not give much value to infotainment. It's more inclined towards entertainment. If you're scrolling through and you see some rubbish video where they're making fun about each other or they're doing something funny, you'll stop and watch. But if you scroll through and you see someone talking about something, about a value, I don't think you're going to you're gonna think once before stopping by. It takes less than 3 seconds to scroll. Okay, I don't want to listen. Though you come up with a question saying, "My life is a mess. I want to change,"
Yeah.
and still you don't want to apply.
Yeah.
So these are the things that happen, and I think these were I wouldn't say failures, but I realized these were areas of my life where I wanted to just I felt like this is not working out for me.
Man.
But we are here, and I'm sure we are going to keep growing.
Okay, Ekta. I have one last question before I let you go, and that is you've done phenomenally well as an influencer. You've been putting out great content. I, for one, am super excited to see how long this will go and how many more people it will impact. And I really wish all the love, luck, and all the good energy in the world that moves towards your journey. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I wouldn't say because it's a little secret. but to be very honest, I think it's, if I have to sum it up, I would say that it's to provide more and more value to people, and in whatever best way possible that I can reach out to more. Also creating a community together. It's just not on social media, but even in person, creating a community together and helping out people, because mental health comes first. So I think there are a lot of things. I'm sure that I think your audience will see a lot more. You can stay tuned on my page and even his page for that matter. And you'll see us growing. A lot more coming up.
Thank you, Ekta, for coming to my show. It was an absolute joy to have you here. Lot of insights, lot of things about relationships that we've never discussed on the show.
Also, you promised we have to do a part 2.
Yeah, we are going to do a part 2 for sure. And man, I'm so excited. Guys, we will be, putting all of Ekta's handles down in the description below. So make sure you follow, watch her content, and also message her how good she is. On that note, thank you one more time from the bottom of my heart, Ekta. It's a pleasure hosting you on my show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.